Just like you, I am very disappointed. Toyota are once again missing from Need for Speed, this time being Unbound. This is the car list. We've seen it already. Toyota, what the frick? This has been an ongoing battle for some time, and it's a little bit ridiculous, to be honest with you, and that's from one side. I've seen some content attempting to explain the situation, and I feel like it's just further muddying the whole thought process. Not to say that any of these things are wrong, but I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's as easy as explaining one point and being done with it. The main point to know, Toyota does not want to be in Need for Speed. Why? We're going to explain that. Now, there are multiple reasons likely as to why this is the case, and it's probably why not only Toyota, but one of your other favorite manufacturers isn't in Need for Speed. There's a whole slew of possibilities, and I'm going to dive into pretty much all of the potential ones I can think of based on the fact that I've known games for so long. These are questions I've asked in the past with multiple different games. Ask questions, get answers. Point number one. That not all deals are the same. This is a common misconception with anything to do with games. The best way to look at it is if you look at Game Pass, this is something that's publicly discussed quite frequently, is that there's no set way. Some of them base it on the fact that they want a flat fee. Some of them want a percentage of profits. Some of them would want a combination of those two or more. Some, I'm sure, would even ask for the finer detail of how many people bought the car in the game and a percentage of the overall cars. We want to take some of that. They have many various asks, and that's fine. That's not a problem at all, and those deals are agreed. But sometimes they're not. Are some cars more expensive than others? Abso-freaking-lutely. There's no standard. There's no... Some of them don't want anything. It's not as simple as you think to do this whole shindig. Another question you may ask is why, if we don't have the Supra, do we have 70 different models of the same car? This is a question that I definitely know the answer to, and that it is so much easier. Don't even have to think very far about the fact that it's so much easier to repurpose an existing model than to create a new one. Think about how we have a Ford Crown Victoria. We had it in the past as a police car, and now we're getting it as a normal car. Why are we getting that? To buff up the car list and make it look like we've got more cars in the game? Well, because it's so easy to do. The car model exists in the game. Now they've got to add parts to it and be done with it. It's something you see a hell of a lot with Car Pass, especially with the most recent Forza. It was previously more so based on the festival playlist. That's when you got these repurposed, reused cars. All you need to do is change the badge, change the numbers to make the stats better, and literally add a body part or two on it. Whoop-de-doo, we've got a Hellcat. It is so much easier and so much cheaper to repurpose a car and doesn't take anywhere near as long as it does to build these very expensive cars. Even if they don't do it in-house, they outsource it and it costs money. The M2 competition all of a sudden appeared in a previous Need for Speed, and we were like, oh, where's the other one? I kind of prefer the old M2. They had it as a bumper option. You could swap between the two. This is a better system to me, just swapping out the bumpers to make it look like an older version or a newer version. I wish we saw more of that in games. But people want the Hellcats. They want the name. They want it to say Hellcat, otherwise it's not a Hellcat. You could build it. That's better. Anyway, I'm getting lost here. It saves you money to repurpose cars, but this doesn't really explain the Toyota point considering they already got the model. So they don't necessarily need to remodel the Supra, because why, if they were going to remodel the Supra, then they would remodel every car, and every car's been built for, I don't even know how long, 2015. Which brings us to one of the big points, is that car manufacturers are old and weird. They'll have their own conditions, their own ideas of how the market works and how it should work based upon licensing vehicles. They may say, we don't want our old cars in the game showing up our new ones. This is something we discussed previously when we knew that it wasn't going to be in heat either. If you're a car manufacturer and you released a new Supra, but you wanted people to think that the new Supra is cooler than the old Supra, you wouldn't put it in a game because people are going to drag race it. I would argue it doesn't really make much sense considering this is an arcade racing game. It's not as if it's a simulation racing game. That would be a little bit different. But they're in Gran Turismo, so that's not even the reason. But I wouldn't even be surprised if some manufacturers said, well, you can't have the Supra unless you add the RAV4. I can tell you for a fact, no one cares about the RAV4 being in Need for Speed. Okay, maybe one person does. I'm sorry, Dave. In advance, I apologize. But genuinely think about that. If they said you need to have our new cars, including the RAV4, for us to allow you to have the old ones, how much money it then costs to build those new models for the sake of one person to use that car. It just does, it makes it not worth it. But a very important point I thought I would bring up is, honestly, I personally think one of the main significant reasons, and it's been floating around for a good while, this theory. And of all the theories, I thought it was probably one of the most sensible theories, and it's the thought that maybe they don't want to be in the game because of the illegal kind of connotations with the game. Tying into the fact that every advert they keep making gets banned for encouraging illegal speeding, blah, 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 blah. But you could argue that they're in street racing in Forza. So it makes no sense. At one point, the street racing in Forza was illegal, and now they're just not clear about it. It's still illegal. It's probably the incentive it tries to make you feel, but then it has a festival site, and it just doesn't make sense. They've confused them, is what they've done. They've lied. It doesn't take you long to literally find that, yeah, they have this image, a picture got banned for encouraging fast driving. It's just fucking stupid. It's quite honestly stupid. But this is the world we live in now. This is the world we live in. We're not stupid. And to me, it doesn't make sense in that games are the safer option because, well, they're not doing the advertising. The game's doing it for them. It's not illegal to be in a game and do illegal driving because it's fun. Games are almost protected in that, just in the way you're in the Fast and Furious movie. Do you understand where that Fast and Furious it's a bit weird. It's literally advertising you are getting paid for. It doesn't make sense. I was more encouraged to buy a Supra because I played it in Gran Turismo. But this stems from the car list, and I want to say I am very excited for this car list. Need for Speed to me is always about the fact that, yes, there's not 150 million cars in the game. I have always been on the mindset that if the cars need to be rebuilt, then rebuild them. I would much rather this than having Underground 2 era cars in the game. It just doesn't make sense. They would have to be rebuilt. Cars take months to be built. In fact, years. And if you've got a small team of people making these cars, or you outsource them, it still takes time and costs a hell of a lot of money. We're not talking a few thousand here and there. Hundreds of thousands in cases for certain manufacturers. Even if you outsource the creation of the car model, the base car model, that still doesn't give you the audio track that you've got to go along. You've still got to go out and film it. We already know the same place basically makes the car models for all the major games. All of them, Forza, Need for Speed, whatever. You've got then the licensing of the cars or multiple cars. You've got the creation of the aftermarket parts. Why do you think Forza doesn't have that many? Because they go on the side that they want more cars and less parts. Not even just the creation of the parts, but you've also got the licensing of the parts to the car. You've got brands that don't want to work with certain wheel manufacturers, and that's why you see some wheels not available on some cars. It is someone's job out there to keep these manufacturers happy. In some cases, some manufacturers, not all, will genuinely want to see every single possible combination of part, color, design, whatever, smoke, underglow, airbags. Some manufacturers will want to see every single little piece before they decide our car is approved for your game. So at that point, you've already probably built the model and maybe you can't use it. I wonder how many models out there are just sat dormant, waiting, having been paid for, and the manufacturer just said no. I keep saying this, but Ferrari is licensing the game with car customization, modification, whatever. They're in a game about street racing, cops, blah, blah, blah. Toyota racing! But I don't want to end it on a totally negative note. This is some news that we heard of in 2020, in April 2020. So actually, what? That feels like a couple of months ago now, doesn't it? But essentially, Call of Duty has big ball money. They are big dogs with big nuts. And they depicted Humvees in their Call of Duty game because it's about war and army, and Humvees were a very significant part of war. Essentially, there was a lawsuit, and in the end, Call of Duty won against AM General. The judge sided with them and said that, yes, you can use the Humvee for historical reasons because it's historically significant. And I'm on the side that I don't really know if we really should be paying these car manufacturers money to license cars in the game. That's why some cheaper games either make fake ones or they will go the route of burnout and don't have any real cars at all. Of course, I want to see manufacturers thrive, but at the same time, I just want to drive my favorite cars in my favorite racing games. And I would say now, if you go back to Underground era games, it's historical. It captures that time. It captures that era just like Fast and Furious does, but you get to control it. I think a game changer would be if someone tried to f with Rockstar. That, I think, would fix this whole situation. So come on, Rockstar, keep pushing that boundary. Keep stealing those car models, because I feel like you could win this for the whole damn industry, and Midnight Club would return. It just would, because they wouldn't have to pay these scrummy, man, old companies. These old timey companies have a lot to say for, and I know firsthand. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to smash like, subscribe if you're new, and hopefully, if we keep pestering them enough, maybe we'll get Toyota in the game post-launch. It's possible. It's happened with other games before. Smash like, subscribe, and peace.